These two strategies are going to make a world of difference in your online interviews. You might be dreading the fact that you, A, have an upcoming interview, and B, that it's online, and your inner monologue is acting up. An online interview? But I can never seem to connect with the manager if the interview is not in person. What am I gonna do? The problem is not with the online interview. The problem is with the way you're interviewing and the way that technology is actually getting in your way instead of helping facilitate the success of your online interview. So in this video lesson, I'm going to give you 2 strategies that's going to help you leverage technology and use it to your advantage in an online interview. Just making these 2 simple tweaks is going to change the way you interview online. And this is valid across multiple platforms: Adobe Connect, Skype, Zoom, WebEx. All of those things. So as we know, online interviews are becoming more and more popular. They're a dime a dozen. Chances are you've probably already had an online interview. So many of you may be saying right now, yeah, well, I just interview so much better in person. Well, let me be real with you. Many employers are going to reach out with a video call to get to know you. It's so much more convenient. They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to waste your time. So instead of calling you in to come into the office, having you sit down and do an interview, why not just hop on a video call? At least in the very beginning, you'll probably be getting an online interview. So I'm going to teach you 2 ways to feel more comfortable and confident in an online interview so that you can be presenting the way you want to present and answering the questions the way you want to be answering them. And by the end of it, you're really going to feel like you can connect with the hiring manager or the person who's interviewing you. And you're probably going to even want to have online interviews because it's so convenient. And you're going to see why you're going to want it at the end of this video. So make sure you watch till the end for the 2 tips and the tweaks that you can make that will transform the way you interview online. Strategy number 1, make eye contact. Or maybe it's more appropriate if we say camera contact, and you'll see why. So, as you know, in interpersonal communication, it is imperative that we make eye contact. Same with public speaking. We need to be able to look the audience members in the eye, share our thoughts with them because it's a way of connecting with the audience. So why wouldn't the same be true in an online interview scenario? It is. But how do you make eye contact with the other person on the other side of the screen without them actually being in front of you? By looking into the camera. So you're looking into the camera as you respond because that translates into making eye contact with the person. And the person on the other end of the screen will notice that you're actually looking them in the eye. It doesn't even feel like an online call. It really does feel like an in-person situation. Just as simple as looking into the camera. Now, you want to avoid staring at the camera the whole time. Obviously, that would make the person uncomfortable. So instead, you can, add a little bit of eye movement, but you don't want to do too much of it because that can be distracting. And you certainly want to avoid looking up or down. That's just too obvious. My recommendation would be to look at the screen at that point. And they're not going to think anything strange of it because when you look down, you avert your gaze from the camera. You're actually looking at the image of them on the screen. So that's not going to seem strange to them. Really, the only places you should be looking is at the camera to make eye contact and then looking down into the screen. Don't look at the image of you, right? If you want to check your hair or makeup or shirt or whatever, do that before you get on the call, right? So if you're not able to avert your gaze from your own image on the screen, I would put a Post-it so that you're not tempted to look because we want to minimize distractions on the screen so that the only place you can actually have access to is the camera so that you make eye contact. Why does this work? It shows you have a secure handle on the interview, and it also makes the person feel good because it shows that you're paying attention and that you're listening to what they have to say. And everybody likes to feel listened to, right? It's really important to look in the camera when you do your tell me about yourself when you do tell me about your weaknesses, when you're talking about how you would add value to the company and what your role would look like, sharing an anecdote. These are the parts of the interview where we really want to make sure that we're connecting with the hiring manager. Now, when they ask you a question or when you need some thinking time, it is okay to look down. Direct your gaze more so to the screen, in other words. So to sum up strategy 1, you're making a point of looking into the camera so that you can essentially be making eye contact with the hiring manager. It shows confidence, it shows that you're poised, and it shows that you have everything under control, because you do. Even when it doesn't feel like it, you can really project that impression onto them by doing something as simple as maintaining eye contact. And maintaining eye contact will really give them the impression that, wow, she is really confident. He is really confident. So we all know that interviews can be uber stressful. And for some people, it's even more stressful when they feel like they can't connect with the person who's interviewing them because it's not done in person, right? In an online interview situation. But I'm telling you that you don't have to worry. So we looked at the first strategy of making eye contact, and now we are looking at the second strategy, which is having a safety net. So you may be thinking, okay, so what's my safety net? How in the world am I going to feel even more secure about this whole thing? Well, you're going to have a minimized outline. Now, it's really important, and I really stress this and underline it and highlight it. You really have to make sure that you're not overstuffing your outline. And outline is probably a generous term for it. What you really want is to have a few talking points. You don't know what you're going to get ahead of time in terms of the questions, but you have some sense as to what you'll be speaking about. So those are your talking points, and that is what you want in your outline. Okay? So make sure that it's not more than 5 words, because then you're going to fall into the trap of reading off the screen. And that is super obvious, right? Reading eyes. You see it sometimes in newscasters when they're reading the teleprompter. You want to avoid that because it is really obvious. So instead, you have just a few points, right? These can also be images for the more visual Explearners out there, right? Just put an image that, again, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It's about allowing you to see that image or see that word, and then it jolts your memory, and then you're able to speak to it. Once you have your few talking points, that is when you minimize it and you get it to fit all nice and tightly into a square. And here comes the fun part. You take that minimized screen and you overlay it onto the image of the person, right? Because think about it. You have a maximized window, and then you have a smaller version in a PDF file or a Word file of your talking points, and you overlay it onto the image of the person that you're interviewing with. Now you might say, oh, but I'm not gonna be able to see them. Honestly, it'll be more distracting if you are looking at them constantly as opposed to looking into the camera. Every now and then, you can take your mouse and discreetly move it so that you can see their expressions. But as much as you can, take your talking points and put that there so that it will minimize the distractions that you have on the screen, and then it gives you access to look at the camera. That is where your gaze should be for the most part, right? Again, we're not staring. Why does this work? You have the security of knowing that your outline is there, that your talking points are there should you need them. Security net. And this is also important because you're not tempted to look anywhere else other than their eyes when you're responding to the question. So to sum up strategy 2, doing this minimized talking points window action is really going to give you the peace of mind to respond in a way that you're proud of, that you feel reflects your experience, your expertise, your background, your skills, why you're a good fit for the role in a great way. And it also helps guide your gaze to the camera where it should be most of the time in the interview. So to quickly recap, the problem that we're trying to solve is to figure out a way of getting you to be more confident and comfortable in an online interview, thus giving you a higher success rate. And we have 2 solutions as to how to address that. 1, to make eye contact by looking in the camera, and 2, to minimize your talking points. Minimize your talking points, minimize distractions. So for the first strategy, it might be a little bit strange at first to try to make eye contact with the camera to even look there, but you will get used to it and try it out with a friend. Really try to do it. Make it a point of looking in the person's eyes by looking at the camera, because it is the difference of looking at somebody's shirt and looking them in the eye. So which one are you going to look at? Their eyes or their outfit? Their eyes, you guys, right? As for 2, minimizing your talking points, be really, really strict about what goes in there. You don't want it to be a crutch. The reality is that you're already prepared for the interview, provided that you did already a lot of the heavy lifting beforehand, right? This is really only to get you in the right headspace and to make sure that you can fall back on looking at it if you were to need it. But most of the time, you won't need it. It's really there to act as a security blanket and not to distract you with their image on the screen. Practice doing these 2 strategies in a casual video call with a friend of yours and see if they're, responding to the way you interacted online any differently by doing those 2 things that we discussed in this video. And you can always just put in a couple of talking points, things that you want to share with your friend, some catch-up points, and see if, how it works for you. Because you need to practice this before getting on the call that counts, in other words. And you will gradually see changes. You will start to get more comfortable interviewing online. And at the end of the day, you're probably going to suggest to the hiring manager that you first chat online. It's going to be so comfortable and super convenient to just turn on your computer, get ready, and make eye contact with the camera. All right, Explearners, that's a wrap on this video. I hope that you found it helpful. Try them out, make them your own, and go out there and Explearn. I will see you in my next video right here on Explearning Communication Coaching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It means a lot to us, and that way you'll catch us in the next video. Happy Explearning!